Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." These words, written centuries ago, still hold a profound truth for anyone facing life's inevitable challenges. Think about the last time you encountered pain or adversity. How did you respond? Did it break you, or did it become a moment of transformation? Today, we're diving into the timeless wisdom of Stoicism, a philosophy that doesn't just teach us to endure hardship, but to harness it as a source of power. Through principles like cognitive reframing, acceptance, and the dichotomy of control, we'll explore how the Stoics turned pain into resilience and adversity into opportunity. This isn't just about surviving life's storms, it's about learning to thrive within them. So, if you've ever felt overwhelmed by circumstances beyond your control, or wondered how to find strength in the face of suffering, you're in the right place. Let's uncover how these ancient ideas can help you build unshakable resilience starting today. What if you could stop worrying about things you can't change? This is the core of the Stoic concept known as the dichotomy of control. At its heart, it's about recognizing that not everything in life is within our power, but how we respond to those things always is. The Stoics believed that the key to resilience lies in understanding this distinction. External events like the weather, other people's opinions, or even unexpected setbacks are outside our control. But our thoughts, emotions, and actions, those are entirely up to us. Epictetus, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, put it simply, "Some things are in our control and others are not." This idea isn't just philosophical theory, it's a practical tool for navigating life's challenges. Let's take a modern example. Imagine losing your job unexpectedly. It's a situation that feels overwhelming, and it's easy to spiral into frustration or fear. But here's where the dichotomy of control comes in. While you can't change the fact that you lost the job, you can control how you respond. You can choose to update your resume, network with others, or even explore new career paths. By focusing on what's within your power, you reduce stress and regain a sense of agency. This principle doesn't just apply to big life events, it's relevant in everyday moments too. Think about traffic on your way to work. You can't control the congestion, but you can decide how to use that time. Maybe you listen to an audiobook or practice mindfulness. The point is, by shifting your attention to what you can influence, you reclaim your peace of mind. So here's a challenge for you. Take a moment to reflect on your current challenges. List 3 things you can control and 3 things you can't. This simple exercise can help you focus your energy where it truly matters, turning frustration into action and chaos into clarity. When you embrace the dichotomy of control, you're not just surviving life's storms, you're learning to navigate them with purpose. What if every obstacle you faced was an opportunity to grow stronger? This is the core idea behind the Stoic practice of cognitive reframing, a powerful tool for transforming adversity into fuel for personal growth. The Stoics believed that challenges aren't just random misfortunes, they're training grounds for cultivating resilience, wisdom, and virtue. In their view, the struggles we face are not roadblocks but stepping stones, designed to help us become the best versions of ourselves. Take Seneca's words, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." Think about that for a moment. Just as lifting weights builds physical strength, facing hardships builds mental and emotional fortitude. The Stoics didn't see pain or failure as something to avoid or resent. Instead, they saw these experiences as essential to growth. Every setback, every moment of discomfort is an invitation to practice patience, courage, and self-discipline. Here's a practical example. Imagine someone who loses their job unexpectedly. At first, it feels like a crushing blow, a failure that shakes their confidence. But what if they chose to reframe it? Instead of seeing it as a dead end, they could view it as a chance to reevaluate their path, learn new skills, or even pursue a passion they've been putting off. The setback becomes a catalyst for transformation. Now, think about your own life. Can you recall a recent challenge or disappointment? What if, instead of dwelling on the frustration, you asked yourself, what can I learn from this? How can this make me stronger? This simple shift in perspective can turn a moment of pain into a source of power. Cognitive reframing isn't about denying the difficulty of a situation. It's about choosing to see the potential within it. By embracing this Stoic mindset, you don't just endure adversity, you use it to grow, to adapt, and to thrive. And that's where true resilience begins. What if you could love every moment of your life, even the painful ones? This is the heart of the Stoic principle known as Amor Fati, the love of fate. It's not about passively accepting what happens to you, but actively embracing it, seeing every event, whether joyful or painful, as an opportunity to grow stronger and wiser. For the Stoics, fate isn't something to resist or resent. It's the raw material life gives us to shape our character and practice virtue. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic thinkers, put it beautifully. A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything thrown into it. Think about that for a moment. A fire doesn't discriminate between what's tossed into it. It transforms everything into energy and light. In the same way, the Stoics believed we could take whatever life throws at us, no matter how difficult or unexpected, and use it to fuel our growth. Even in the face of loss, failure, or hardship, we have the power to turn those experiences into something meaningful. Take the example of Epictetus, a Stoic philosopher who was born into slavery and later exiled from Rome. Instead of cursing his fate, he saw these challenges as opportunities to deepen his understanding of resilience and freedom. His teachings remind us that our circumstances don't define us. It's how we respond to them that matters. Amor Fati isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about finding value in the imperfect, the messy, and even the painful. So, how can we apply this in our own lives? Start by reflecting on a challenge you're facing right now. Maybe it's a setback at work, a strained relationship, or a personal struggle. Instead of wishing it away, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can this make me stronger or more compassionate? By shifting your perspective, you begin to see even the hardest moments as part of your journey, not obstacles to it. Amor Fati isn't easy, it takes practice and courage. But when we learn to love our fate, we stop fighting against life and start flowing with it, finding strength and meaning in every twist and turn. How often do you let past regrets or future worries steal your peace? It's easy to get caught up in what's already happened or what might happen next, but the Stoics remind us that real power lies in staying present. They believed that much of our suffering comes not from the events themselves, but from how we interpret and dwell on them. As Epictetus wisely said, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. In other words, our minds have a way of magnifying pain, turning small concerns into overwhelming burdens. The Stoic practice of mindfulness is about stepping back from this mental chaos and focusing on what's right in front of you. It's not about ignoring your emotions or pretending everything is fine. It's about recognizing that you have the power to choose where you direct your attention. When you stay present, you're better equipped to respond to challenges with clarity and calm, rather than being swept away by fear or frustration. Think about a modern scenario like managing anxiety during a crisis. You might feel overwhelmed by the uncertainty of what's to come, but the Stoic approach would be to ground yourself in the present moment. Ask yourself, what can I control right now? What small action can I take to move forward? By focusing on the here and now, you reduce the mental clutter that amplifies stress and regain a sense of agency. Here's a simple exercise to try. Spend just 5 minutes focusing solely on the present moment. Notice the sensations around you, the feel of your breath, the sounds in the room, the texture of the surface beneath your hands. This isn't about solving problems or planning ahead. It's about training your mind to stay grounded. Over time, this practice can help you build resilience, allowing you to face difficulties with a steadier hand and a clearer mind. The Stoics didn't just preach presence, they lived it. They knew that by anchoring themselves in the present, they could navigate life's storms with greater strength and less suffering. And the same power is available to you right here, right now. What if your success wasn't measured by results, but by your character? This is the essence of Stoic philosophy when it comes to resilience. The Stoics believed that true strength doesn't come from achieving external goals, money, fame, or even survival, but from cultivating virtue. Virtue, to them, was the foundation of a good life, and it's what allows us to endure hardship with grace and dignity. At its core, Stoic virtue is built on 4 pillars: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Wisdom helps us see the world clearly, free from the distortions of fear or desire. Courage gives us the strength to face challenges head-on, even when the path is uncertain. Justice reminds us to act with fairness and integrity, even when it's inconvenient. And temperance teaches us to master our impulses, so we don't lose ourselves in the pursuit of fleeting pleasures. Together, these virtues form the bedrock of resilience, allowing us to stand firm no matter what life throws at us. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most famous Stoics, put it simply: waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one. This isn't just a call to action, it's a reminder that resilience isn't about debating or theorizing. It's about embodying these virtues in your everyday life, especially when it's difficult. Imagine a situation where someone is offered a shortcut to success, a bribe, a lie, or a compromise of their values. Choosing integrity in that moment, even if it means losing out on a reward, is an act of resilience. It's a decision that strengthens their character and aligns them with Stoic principles. Think about a time in your own life when you faced a similar choice. Maybe it was standing up for what you believed in, even when it cost you something. Or perhaps it was resisting the temptation to take the easy way out, knowing it wouldn't align with your values. Those moments, however small, are where resilience is built. They're the opportunities to practice wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, not just in theory, but in action. By prioritizing virtue over external outcomes, we shift our focus from what we can't control to what we can, our character. And in doing so, we build a kind of resilience that no failure or hardship can shake. It's not about avoiding pain or achieving perfection. It's about becoming the kind of person who can face life's challenges with unwavering strength and clarity. What if preparing for the worst could make you fearless? This is the essence of a powerful Stoic practice called negative visualization. At first glance, it might sound counterintuitive. Why would anyone willingly think about the things they fear most? But for the Stoics, this exercise wasn't about dwelling on fear. It was about disarming it. By imagining the worst-case scenarios, they believed they could reduce the emotional weight of those possibilities and, in turn, build unshakable resilience. The idea is simple but profound. When we visualize challenges, setbacks, or even losses, we're not inviting them into our lives. Instead, we're training ourselves to face them with clarity and courage. As Seneca once said, "He who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive." In other words, when you've already walked through the worst in your mind, it loses its grip on you. You've already seen it, felt it, and prepared for it, so when it shows up, if it ever does, you're not caught off guard. Let's bring this into a modern context. Imagine you're worried about your finances. Maybe you're saving for retirement, but the thought of a market crash keeps you up at night. Instead of letting that fear paralyze you, Stoics would encourage you to visualize that scenario. What would you do if your investments lost half their value? How would you adapt? By thinking through the steps: cutting expenses, finding new income streams, or even relying on community support. You're not just preparing for the worst, you're reminding yourself of your own resourcefulness. And in the process, you're likely to feel a deeper sense of gratitude for what you have right now. This practice isn't about expecting disaster at every turn. It's about cultivating a mindset that's ready for anything. When you face the worst in your imagination, the everyday uncertainties of life start to feel smaller, more manageable. You're not avoiding fear, you're mastering it, so why not give it a try? Take a few minutes today to imagine a worst-case scenario in your own life. Picture it vividly, not to scare yourself but to prepare. What steps would you take to navigate it? How would you rise to the challenge? By doing this, you're not just practicing Stoic philosophy, you're building a stronger, more resilient version of yourself. And who knows, you might just find that the worst-case scenario isn't as terrifying as you once thought. What if pain wasn't your enemy but your greatest teacher? This is precisely how the Stoics viewed pain, not as something to avoid at all costs, but as an essential part of life that shapes us into stronger, wiser, and more resilient individuals. They believed that enduring pain, whether physical or emotional, is a necessary step in building character. After all, it's through struggle that we discover our true strength. Epictetus, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, put it this way: "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity." Think about that for a moment. Adversity, pain, and hardship aren't just obstacles, they're opportunities. They teach us patience, humility, and the ability to adapt. Without these challenges, we'd never grow. We'd remain stagnant, never testing the limits of our potential. Take the example of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher. Despite his immense power, he faced constant physical pain and the burdens of leadership during a time of war and plague. Yet he didn't crumble under the weight of these struggles. Instead, he used them as a mirror to reflect on his own character and as a forge to strengthen his resolve. He wrote in his personal journal, "What stands in the way becomes the way." Pain, for him, wasn't a barrier, it was the path forward. So, what can we learn from this? Pain, while uncomfortable, often carries a hidden lesson. Maybe it's teaching us to let go of control, to accept what we cannot change, or to find gratitude in the midst of difficulty. The Stoics remind us that every challenge is a chance to practice virtue, to respond with courage, wisdom, and compassion, even when it feels impossible. Now take a moment to reflect on your own life. What lessons have you learned from the pain you've endured? Perhaps it was a loss that taught you the value of relationships, or a failure that showed you the importance of persistence. Whatever it was, those moments likely shaped you in ways you couldn't have anticipated. And that's the Stoic view of pain, not as something to fear, but as a teacher guiding us toward a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. What if mastering yourself was the key to mastering life? For the Stoics, self-discipline wasn't just a virtue, it was a superpower. It's the tool that allows us to stay grounded when the world feels like it's spinning out of control. The Stoics believed that by cultivating self-discipline, we could build an inner fortress, one that no external chaos could easily breach. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." This simple yet profound idea reminds us that while we can't always control what happens to us, we can always control how we respond. But how does this play out in real life? Think about a time when everything around you felt chaotic. Maybe it was a stressful week at work, a personal crisis, or even a global event that disrupted your routine. In those moments, self-discipline becomes your anchor. It's what helps you stick to your daily habits, whether it's waking up early, exercising, or simply taking a few minutes to reflect. By maintaining these small acts of discipline, you're not just keeping your life on track, you're reinforcing your ability to stay resilient no matter what comes your way. Let's break it down further. The Stoics saw self-discipline as a way to train the mind, much like an athlete trains their body. It's not about denying yourself pleasure or living a life of austerity. Instead, it's about making intentional choices that align with your values and long-term goals. When you choose to delay gratification or resist the urge to react impulsively, you're exercising your self-discipline muscle. And just like any muscle, the more you use it, the stronger it becomes. Consider a modern example. Imagine you're working from home and distractions are everywhere. Your phone buzzes with notifications, your family needs your attention, and the temptation to procrastinate is real. Self-discipline in this context means setting boundaries. Maybe it's turning off your phone for an hour, creating a dedicated workspace, or sticking to a schedule. These small acts of discipline might seem insignificant, but over time they add up. They help you stay focused, productive, and ultimately in control of your own life. So, where can you start? Take a moment to reflect on one area of your life where you could practice more self-discipline. Is it in your daily habits, your relationships, or how you manage your emotions? Remember, self-discipline isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Every time you choose to act with intention rather than impulse, you're strengthening your resilience and proving to yourself that you have the power to shape your own destiny. What if fear was just an illusion you could dissolve? This is the question Stoics ask themselves when they face the things that scare them most. For the Stoics, fear isn't something to run from, it's an opportunity to grow stronger. They believed that fear is often rooted in the stories we tell ourselves, in the things we imagine might happen rather than what's actually happening. Seneca once said, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality." This is a powerful reminder that fear is often a product of our own minds, not the world around us. The Stoic approach to fear begins with understanding its source. Instead of avoiding it or letting it paralyze you, they encourage you to break it down. Ask yourself, what am I truly afraid of? What's the worst that could happen? And if that worst-case scenario did occur, how would I handle it? By dissecting fear in this way, you strip away its power. It's no longer this vague, overwhelming force. It becomes something you can manage, something you can work through. Take, for example, someone with a fear of public speaking. They might imagine everything going wrong, stumbling over their words, being judged, or embarrassing themselves, but a Stoic would challenge those thoughts. They'd ask, what's the actual risk here? Even if I stumble, will it really matter in the long run? And if it does, how can I prepare to handle it? By facing the fear head-on, they reduce its hold over them. This isn't about pretending fear doesn't exist. It's about changing your relationship with it. Fear, for the Stoics, is a teacher. It shows you where you need to grow, where you need to build resilience. And when you confront it, you don't just overcome that specific fear, you build the confidence to face the next challenge that comes your way. So here's a question for you. What's one fear you've been avoiding? What would it look like to confront it with Stoic clarity? To break it down, understand it, and take one small step toward overcoming it? Because the truth is, fear loses its grip the moment you decide to face it, and that's where your power begins. What if every challenge was a gift in disguise? This is precisely how the Stoics viewed adversity. Not as something to fear or avoid, but as an essential tool for building strength and resilience. They believed that obstacles, setbacks, and even suffering were opportunities to reveal our true character and grow in ways we might never have imagined. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, put it this way: the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. In other words, the very things that seem to block our path can actually become the path itself if we choose to see them that way. take the example of Seneca, another Stoic thinker, who was exiled to the island of Corsica by the Roman Emperor Caligula. Instead of crumbling under the weight of his circumstances, Seneca used his time in exile to deepen his philosophical understanding and write some of his most profound works. He saw his banishment not as a punishment, but as an opportunity to reflect, grow, and refine his character. His ability to thrive in the face of adversity is a powerful reminder that our struggles don't define us, how we respond to them does. So, how can we apply this Stoic perspective to our own lives? Think about a time when you faced a significant challenge. Maybe it was a career setback, a personal loss, or even a failure that felt insurmountable at the time. Reflect on how that experience shaped you. Did it teach you something about your resilience? Did it push you to develop skills or qualities you didn't know you had? The Stoics would argue that every hardship carries with it the potential for growth. If we're willing to embrace it, adversity doesn't just test us, it refines us. It strips away the unnecessary, leaving us with a clearer sense of who we are and what truly matters. The next time you find yourself facing a difficult situation, try asking yourself, what can I learn from this? How can this challenge make me stronger? By shifting your perspective, you might just discover that the obstacles in your path are not barriers, but stepping stones to becoming the best version of yourself. What if focusing on what you have could change your perspective on pain? This is the heart of the Stoic practice of gratitude, a powerful tool for building resilience. The Stoics believed that by shifting our attention from what we lack to what we already possess, we can transform how we experience hardship. It's not about ignoring pain or pretending everything is perfect, but about finding strength in the good that still exists even in the midst of struggle. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." In other words, wisdom lies in appreciating what's already here rather than fixating on what's missing. This mindset doesn't just make us feel better in the moment, it trains us to see life through a lens of abundance even when circumstances feel scarce. So, how can we put this into practice? One modern example is keeping a gratitude journal. During tough times, taking a few minutes each day to write down what you're thankful for can help reframe your mindset. It could be as simple as appreciating a warm cup of coffee, a kind word from a friend, or the fact that you have the strength to face another day. Over time, this habit rewires your brain to notice and hold onto the positives, even when life feels heavy. Here's a challenge for you. Take a moment right now to list 3 things you're grateful for today. They don't have to be grand or life-changing, just genuine. By doing this, you're not only practicing Stoic gratitude, but also building a foundation of resilience that can carry you through life's inevitable challenges. What if you could free yourself from the weight of time, those heavy chains of past regrets and future anxieties that so often hold us back? For the Stoics, this wasn't just a philosophical ideal, it was a practical way of living. They believed that the present moment is the only time we truly have control over, and dwelling on what's already happened or worrying about what might come only robs us of the life we're meant to live right now. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, put it this way: "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Think about that for a moment. How often do we let hours slip away, lost in thoughts about mistakes we can't undo or fears about events that may never happen? The Stoics saw this as a kind of theft, stealing from ourselves the very time we claim to value so much. To live like a Stoic means to reclaim that stolen time. It's about training yourself to focus on what's in front of you, right here, right now. It doesn't mean ignoring the past or neglecting to plan for the future, but rather refusing to let them dominate your mind. When you're fully present, you're able to act with clarity and purpose, free from the distractions of what ifs and if onlys. Imagine someone struggling with procrastination. always putting things off because they're overwhelmed by the enormity of a project or paralyzed by the fear of failure. A Stoic approach would be to break the task into smaller, manageable steps and focus entirely on the one step in front of them. By staying rooted in the present, they can make steady progress without being weighed down by the pressure of the entire project or the fear of what might go wrong. So here's a challenge for you. Try spending a day fully present. Let go of the habit of replaying past mistakes or rehearsing future scenarios. When you catch your mind wandering, gently bring it back to the moment. Notice the details of your surroundings, the sensations in your body, the task at hand. This isn't about perfection, it's about practice. And with time, you might find that the weight of time begins to lift, leaving you lighter, freer, and more alive. What if your strength came from the people around you? The Stoics, often seen as solitary figures, actually placed immense value on community and relationships. They believed that while we must cultivate inner resilience, we are not meant to face life's challenges alone. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most revered Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "What is not good for the swarm is not good for the bee." This simple yet profound statement reminds us that our well-being is deeply connected to the well-being of those around us. We thrive not in isolation, but in the shared wisdom and support of our communities. Think about it. When hardship strikes, who do you turn to? A close friend, a family member, or even a mentor? The Stoics understood that these relationships aren't just comforting, they're essential. They believed that leaning on others isn't a sign of weakness, but a recognition of our shared humanity. In fact, they saw community as a mirror, reflecting back the lessons we need to grow. When we open ourselves to others, we gain access to perspectives, experiences, and insights that can help us navigate even the toughest moments. Let's bring this into the modern world. Imagine you're going through a career setback. Maybe you lost a job or failed at a project. The Stoic approach wouldn't be to retreat into solitude, but to seek out trusted friends or colleagues who can offer guidance or simply listen. Their support could help you see the situation more clearly, learn from it, and move forward with renewed purpose. This is the power of community. It amplifies our resilience, helping us rise stronger than we might on our own. So here's a question to reflect on. Who is that one person in your life you can turn to when things get tough? Take a moment to think about someone who has been a source of strength or wisdom for you. Maybe it's a family member, a friend, or even a mentor. Recognizing this connection isn't just about gratitude, it's about understanding that resilience isn't a solo journey. It's a shared one, built on the bonds we nurture with others. And in those bonds, we find not just support, but the courage to face whatever life throws our way. What if anger was just a signal to pause and reflect? For the Stoics, anger isn't something to indulge or suppress, it's an opportunity to exercise reason and self-control. They saw anger as a destructive emotion, one that clouds judgment and leads to actions we often regret. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it plainly: anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it. In other words, the real damage comes not from what angered us, but from how we react to it. The Stoic approach to anger begins with understanding its nature. It's not about denying that we feel angry. It's about recognizing that anger is a temporary, irrational response. Instead of letting it take the wheel, Stoics pause and ask themselves, why am I feeling this way? Is my anger justified, or is it simply a reaction to something I can't control? By stepping back and examining the emotion, we strip it of its power. Take, for example, a situation where someone cuts you off in traffic. The immediate reaction might be frustration or even rage, but a Stoic would see this as a moment to practice self-mastery. They'd remind themselves that the other driver's actions are outside their control, and reacting angrily won't change the situation. Instead, they'd focus on what they can control, their own response. This shift in perspective doesn't just diffuse anger, it transforms it into a moment of growth. Think about the last time you felt angry. What triggered it? Did your reaction help or harm the situation? The next time you feel that heat rising, try this Stoic exercise. Pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, what's really at stake here? You might find that the anger fades, leaving space for clarity and calm. The Stoics teach us that anger, like all emotions, is a mirror reflecting our values and expectations. When we respond with reason instead of rage, we not only protect ourselves from unnecessary harm, we also cultivate resilience. It's not about never feeling anger, it's about mastering how we respond to it. And in that mastery lies true power. What if thinking about death could help you live better? It might sound counterintuitive, but for the Stoics, this awareness of mortality was a powerful tool for living a more meaningful and virtuous life. They didn't see death as something to fear or avoid. Instead, they viewed it as a natural part of existence, a reminder that our time is limited and that we should make the most of every moment we have. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, put it this way: do not act as if you are going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. These words weren't meant to frighten or depress, they were a call to action, a reminder to stop procrastinating, to stop wasting time on trivialities, and to focus on what truly matters. The Stoics believed that by keeping death in mind, we could strip away the distractions and live with purpose, integrity, and gratitude. Think about it. How often do we put off the things that matter most, spending time with loved ones, pursuing our passions, or making a positive impact because we assume we'll have more time later? The Stoics would argue that this mindset is a trap. By pretending that life is endless, we risk squandering the precious time we do have. Instead, they taught that acknowledging our mortality can free us from fear and hesitation, pushing us to live boldly and authentically. Here's a modern example. Imagine someone who's terrified of failure, so much so that they never take risks or chase their dreams. But what if they started to see life as finite, as something that won't last forever? Suddenly, the fear of failure might pale in comparison to the regret of never trying at all. Embracing the impermanence of life can be liberating. It can push us to take chances, to grow, and to live without holding back. So, take a moment to reflect. How would your life change if you truly embraced the idea that your time is limited? What would you stop putting off? What would you start doing differently? The Stoics didn't just teach us to accept death, they showed us how to use that acceptance as fuel to live more fully, more courageously, and more meaningfully. What if seeking discomfort could actually make you stronger? It might sound counterintuitive, but this is exactly what the Stoics believed. One of their most powerful exercises for building resilience is the practice of voluntary discomfort. The idea is simple. By intentionally facing small, manageable challenges, you prepare yourself to handle life's inevitable hardships with greater ease and composure. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. In other words, growth often requires stepping outside your comfort zone, even if it means looking a little odd or feeling uncomfortable in the process. The Stoics weren't suggesting you seek out suffering for its own sake, but rather that you train yourself to endure discomfort so that when bigger challenges arise, you're ready. So, what does this look like in practice? Imagine someone choosing to fast for a day, not out of necessity, but to remind themselves that they can endure hunger without complaint. Or think about taking a cold shower instead of a warm one, not because it's pleasant, but because it teaches you to withstand discomfort without resistance. These small acts of self-discipline build mental toughness over time, like muscles growing stronger with exercise. The beauty of this practice is its simplicity. You don't need grand gestures or extreme measures to start. It's about finding small, everyday opportunities to challenge yourself. Maybe it's waking up 10 minutes earlier than usual, or choosing to walk instead of drive when it's cold outside. Each time you embrace discomfort voluntarily, you're training your mind to stay calm and focused, no matter what life throws your way. Here's a challenge for you. This week, try one small act of voluntary discomfort. It doesn't have to be dramatic, just something that pushes you slightly out of your comfort zone. Notice how it feels, not just in the moment, but afterward. What does it teach you about your capacity to endure? How does it shift your perspective on the challenges you face? By taking this step, you're not just building resilience, you're reclaiming control over how you respond to life's difficulties. And that's where true power lies. What if failure was just feedback, not a final judgment? This is the lens through which Stoics view setbacks not as crushing defeats, but as opportunities to learn, adapt, and grow. The Stoic philosophy teaches us that failure isn't something to fear or avoid. It's a natural part of life, and how we respond to it reveals our character. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, put it this way: failure changes for the better, success for the worse. At first glance, this might sound counterintuitive, but when you think about it, failure often forces us to reevaluate, to refine our approach, and to build resilience. Success, on the other hand, can sometimes make us complacent or blind to areas where we need to improve. Consider the story of an entrepreneur whose first business venture didn't succeed. Instead of seeing this as a dead end, they analyzed what went wrong, adjusted their strategy, and applied those lessons to their next endeavor. This is Stoicism in action. The Stoics believed that every failure carries a lesson, and if we're willing to look for it, we can turn even the most painful experiences into fuel for growth. So, how can we apply this mindset to our own lives? Start by reflecting on a past failure, something that felt like a setback at the time. What did you learn from it? Did it push you to develop new skills, change your approach, or even reconsider your priorities? The Stoics remind us that failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of the journey. By reframing our perspective, we can see setbacks not as something to dread, but as stepping stones that lead us closer to where we want to be. What if true wealth had nothing to do with money? The Stoics challenge us to rethink what it means to be truly rich. For them, wealth isn't measured by the size of your bank account or the number of possessions you own. Instead, they believe that real riches come from cultivating inner virtues like wisdom, courage, and self-sufficiency. This radical idea flips the script on what society often tells us about success and happiness. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it simply: wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. In other words, the less you depend on external things to feel fulfilled, the freer and richer you become. This isn't about rejecting material wealth altogether. It's about not letting it define your worth or control your peace of mind. The Stoics saw material possessions as tools, not goals. They believed that attaching too much importance to them could lead to anxiety, greed, and a never-ending cycle of wanting more. Take the example of Diogenes, the ancient philosopher who famously lived in a barrel. When Alexander the Great, the most powerful man in the world at the time, offered to grant him anything he desired, Diogenes simply asked him to step aside because he was blocking the sunlight. This story isn't just about rejecting wealth, it's about valuing what truly matters. For Diogenes, freedom and contentment weren't tied to possessions, but to his ability to live in alignment with his values. So, what does this mean for us today? Think about the last time you felt truly content. Was it when you bought something new, or was it when you connected with someone you love, achieved a personal goal, or simply enjoyed a quiet moment of peace? The Stoics remind us that the things we often chase, money, status, possessions, are fleeting. They can't guarantee lasting happiness, but the inner wealth of character, resilience, and gratitude. That's something no one can take away from you. As you reflect on this idea, ask yourself, what truly makes you feel rich? Is it the things you own, or is it the person you've become? The Stoic view of wealth invites us to shift our focus inward, to cultivate a richness of spirit that no amount of money can buy. And in doing so, we might just find that we already have everything we need. What if criticism was a gift, not an attack to the Stoics? This is exactly how they viewed it, not as something to fear or resent, but as an opportunity for growth. Criticism, when approached with the right mindset, can be a mirror reflecting areas where we can improve. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most revered Stoic philosophers, once said, "If anyone can refute me, let them try." I seek the truth. This wasn't just a statement of confidence, it was an invitation to learn. He welcomed criticism because he saw it as a chance to refine his understanding and become a better version of himself. But how do we adopt this mindset in our own lives? It starts with self-reflection. Instead of reacting defensively, Stoics pause and ask themselves, is there truth in what's being said? Even if the criticism feels harsh or unfair, there's often a kernel of insight hidden within it. By focusing on that, we can turn what feels like an attack into a tool for self-improvement. It's not about agreeing with every critique, but about being open to the possibility that we might not always see ourselves clearly. Take, for example, a modern public figure who faces relentless criticism. Instead of lashing out or shutting down, they respond with humility and grace. They acknowledge the feedback, assess its validity, and use it to grow. This isn't just a PR strategy, it's a Stoic approach. It's about understanding that criticism, even when it stings, can help us become more resilient, more self-aware, and ultimately more aligned with our values. So, how do you typically respond to criticism? Do you find yourself getting defensive, or do you take a moment to reflect? Think about a recent time when someone offered you feedback. Was there something valuable in their words, even if it wasn't delivered perfectly? The Stoic approach invites us to see criticism not as a threat, but as a teacher. And when we embrace that perspective, we unlock the power to grow stronger, wiser, and more grounded in who we are. What if resisting change was the real source of pain? The Stoics had a profound understanding of this truth. They saw change not as something to fear or avoid, but as an essential part of life, a force that shapes us, teaches us, and ultimately strengthens us. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "No great thing is created suddenly." This simple yet powerful idea reminds us that growth and transformation are processes, not events. Change is the raw material from which we build resilience, character, and wisdom. Think about the natural world for a moment. Seasons shift, rivers carve new paths, and even the stars move across the sky. Everything is in a constant state of flux. The Stoics observed this and realized that resisting change is as futile as trying to stop the tide. Instead, they chose to focus on what they could control, their response. By accepting change as inevitable, they freed themselves from the struggle against it. This shift in perspective allowed them to adapt, to flow with life rather than fight against it. Consider the story of someone who faced a sudden career shift, say, a musician who lost the ability to play due to an injury. At first, it might seem like the end of their world. But by embracing the change, they discovered new passions, perhaps even a talent for teaching or composing. What seemed like a loss became an opportunity for reinvention. The Stoics would see this as a testament to the power of adaptation. When we stop resisting and start accepting, we open ourselves to possibilities we might never have imagined. Now take a moment to reflect. What's one change in your life that you've been resisting? Maybe it's a shift in your relationships, your career, or even your daily routine. How might your perspective shift if you saw this change not as a threat but as an opportunity? The Stoics would challenge you to ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I grow through it? By leaning into change rather than pushing it away, you might find that what once felt like a burden becomes a stepping stone to something greater. What if comparing yourself to others was stealing your joy? The Stoics understood this trap all too well. They saw envy not just as a fleeting emotion but as a thief, one that robs us of peace, contentment, and the ability to appreciate our own path. Instead of fixating on what others have or achieve, Stoicism teaches us to turn inward and focus on our own progress. This shift in perspective isn't just about ignoring others. It's about reclaiming our energy and channeling it into what truly matters, our growth. Seneca, one of Stoicism's great thinkers, put it this way: envy of other people shows how unhappy they are. Their continual attention to others' behavior shows how bored they are. This insight is profound. When we envy someone, we're not just distracted, we're revealing a deeper dissatisfaction within ourselves. The Stoics believed that true contentment comes from aligning our actions with our values, not from measuring ourselves against others. Think about it. How often do we scroll through social media, comparing our lives to someone else's highlight reel? It's easy to feel like we're falling behind, but the Stoics would remind us that this comparison game is a losing battle. There will always be someone who seems to have more, achieve more, or be more. The real question is, how can we use that energy to fuel our own journey instead of draining it? Here's a practical example. Imagine someone who feels envious of a colleague's promotion. Instead of stewing in resentment, they could channel that energy into self-improvement, perhaps by identifying skills they want to develop or setting clear goals for their own career. By focusing on their own progress, they transform envy into motivation, turning a negative emotion into a force for growth. So, let's pause for a moment. How often do you catch yourself comparing your life to someone else's? And more importantly, how does it make you feel? The Stoics would encourage us to use that awareness as a starting point. When we shift our attention from what others have to what we can do, we take back control of our happiness. It's not about ignoring others' success. It's about recognizing that our journey is uniquely ours, and that's where true power lies. What if suffering was the fire that forged your strength? The Stoics believed that pain and hardship weren't just obstacles to avoid. They were opportunities to grow, to refine your character, and to become stronger. In their view, suffering isn't something to fear or resist. It's a teacher, a force that shapes us into better versions of ourselves. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing." Life isn't always graceful or easy, but it's in the struggle, in the moments of discomfort and challenge, that we find our true strength. Think about it this way: when we endure suffering, we're forced to confront our limits, to question our assumptions, and to dig deep for resilience. It's not the suffering itself that defines us, but how we respond to it. The Stoics taught that by facing adversity head-on, by accepting it as part of life's natural rhythm, we can transform it into a source of power. Instead of being crushed by hardship, we can use it as a tool to build endurance, patience, and wisdom. Consider the story of Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison before emerging as a leader who championed peace and reconciliation. His suffering didn't break him, it shaped him, honed his vision, and gave him the strength to lead with compassion and resilience. Mandela's life is a powerful reminder that even in the darkest moments, there's potential for growth, for meaning, and for change. So, how have you grown through your own suffering? Think back to a time when life felt overwhelming, when you faced a challenge that seemed insurmountable. What did you learn about yourself in those moments? How did that experience shape the person you are today? The Stoics would say that those moments, as painful as they were gifts, opportunities to discover your inner strength and to rise above the circumstances. Suffering isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of a new chapter, one where you emerge stronger, wiser, and more resilient. What if uncertainty wasn't something to fear, but a blank canvas for your creativity? For the Stoics, the unknown wasn't a source of anxiety. It was an opportunity to exercise their greatest strength, the ability to focus on what they can control and let go of what they cannot. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This simple yet profound idea is at the heart of the Stoic approach to uncertainty. Instead of resisting the unpredictable, they embraced it as a natural part of life, a chance to practice resilience and adaptability. Think about a moment in your own life when you faced a major change, maybe a career shift, a move to a new city, or even a sudden loss. In those moments, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the unknown. But what if you could reframe that uncertainty? What if you saw it not as a threat, but as an invitation to grow? The Stoics would remind us that while we can't control external events, we always have power over our own mindset and actions. By focusing on our response, we can turn even the most chaotic situations into opportunities for personal development. Take modern career transitions, for example. In today's fast-paced world, industries evolve, jobs disappear, and new opportunities emerge. A Stoic would approach this uncertainty by asking, "What can I control here?" They might focus on building new skills, networking, or even exploring a passion they've neglected. The key isn't to eliminate uncertainty, it's to work within it, using it as a catalyst for growth rather than a barrier. Now consider this. What's one area of uncertainty in your life right now? How could you approach it with a Stoic mindset? Instead of fixating on the unknowns, what steps could you take to focus on what's within your control? By shifting your perspective, you might find that uncertainty becomes less daunting and more empowering, a space where creativity and resilience can thrive. What if success wasn't about winning, but about being your best self? This is the heart of the Stoic view of success, a perspective that challenges our modern obsession with external achievements. For the Stoics, true success isn't measured by wealth, status, or even the outcomes of our efforts. Instead, it's defined by how we live, the choices we make, and the character we cultivate along the way. Take Seneca's words, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." This isn't just a philosophical statement, it's a call to focus on what truly matters. The Stoics believed that chasing external rewards, whether money, fame, or approval, leads to a never-ending cycle of dissatisfaction. Why? Because these things are outside our control. What is within our control, however, is how we respond to life's challenges, how we treat others, and whether we act with integrity and virtue. Think about someone who has lived a simple life, perhaps without much recognition or material wealth, but who consistently acts with kindness, courage, and wisdom. Stoicism would argue that this person is far more successful than someone who has amassed great riches but lacks inner peace or moral grounding. Success, in this view, isn't about what you accumulate, it's about who you become. So, how does this apply to your life? Imagine a scenario where you've worked tirelessly toward a goal, only to fall short of the result you hoped for. The Stoic approach would be to ask, did you give your best effort? Did you act with honesty and fairness? If the answer is yes, then you've already succeeded, regardless of the outcome. The achievement itself is secondary. The real victory lies in the person you became through the process. Now take a moment to reflect. How do you define success? Is it tied to external markers like promotions, accolades, or possessions? Or is it rooted in your values, your growth, and the way you contribute to the world around you? The Stoics invite us to shift our perspective and find fulfillment not in what we gain, but in how we live. And that, perhaps, is the most empowering definition of success there is. What if being alone was an opportunity to connect with yourself? For the Stoics, solitude wasn't something to fear or avoid. It was a chance to turn inward and cultivate inner strength. They believed that loneliness, when embraced with the right mindset, could become a powerful tool for self-discovery and resilience. Think about it. In a world that often feels noisy and overwhelming, solitude offers a rare space to pause, reflect, and truly understand who you are. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." This idea captures the essence of the Stoic approach to loneliness. Instead of seeing it as a void or a lack of connection, they viewed it as an opportunity to retreat into the quiet sanctuary of the self. In that stillness, away from distractions and external pressures, they found clarity and peace. It's not about shutting out the world entirely, but about creating a space where you can listen to your own thoughts and reconnect with your values. Consider someone in the modern world who, during a period of isolation, perhaps due to a life change or a global event, chooses to see that time as a gift rather than a burden. Instead of filling every moment with distractions, they use it to journal, meditate, or simply sit with their thoughts. Over time, they begin to notice patterns in their emotions, gain insights into their desires, and build a stronger sense of self-reliance. This is the Stoic way, transforming solitude into a source of empowerment. So how can you apply this in your own life? When you find yourself alone, resist the urge to immediately fill the silence. Instead, ask yourself, what can I learn from this moment? How can I use this time to strengthen my relationship with myself? The Stoics remind us that the most important connection we'll ever have is the one we cultivate within. And sometimes it's in the quietest moments that we find the loudest truths. What if your legacy was simply how you lived, not what you left behind? For the Stoics, this question cuts to the heart of what it means to live a meaningful life. They believed that our worth isn't measured by the monuments we build, the wealth we accumulate, or even the fame we achieve. Instead, it's about the virtues we embody and the way we navigate the world with integrity. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "What is the fruit of these teachings? Tranquility, fearlessness, and freedom." These words remind us that the true rewards of a Stoic life aren't external validations or posthumous accolades, they're internal. It's about living in a way that brings us peace, courage, and a sense of liberation from the pressures of societal expectations. Think about it. How often do we get caught up in the idea of leaving a mark, of being remembered long after we're gone? The Stoics would argue that this focus on legacy can distract us from what truly matters, the here and now. They encourage us to shift our attention from how we'll be remembered to how we're living today. Are we kind? Are we just? Are we living in alignment with our values? These are the questions that define a Stoic legacy. Take, for example, a teacher who dedicates her life to shaping young minds, not for recognition or awards, but because she believes in the power of education to transform lives. She may never make headlines or have a building named after her, but her impact is profound. Her legacy lives on in the values she instills, the confidence she builds, and the lives she touches. This is the Stoic approach to legacy. It's not about the grandeur of what we leave behind, but the depth of how we live. So here's a question to ponder. How do you want to be remembered? And more importantly, does the way you're living now reflect that vision? The Stoics would challenge us to align our actions with our values, to live so fully in the present that the question of legacy becomes secondary. Because in the end, the most enduring legacy we can leave is a life well lived, one that's rooted in virtue, integrity, and a commitment to doing what's right regardless of who's watching. What if regret was a compass guiding you toward growth? For the Stoics, this is exactly how they viewed regret, not as a burden to carry, but as a tool for self-improvement. Instead of allowing past mistakes to weigh them down, they saw these moments as opportunities to reflect, learn, and grow. Take Seneca, for example, who once said, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality." What he's getting at here is that regret often feels worse in our minds than it actually is in reality. It's not the mistake itself that causes the most pain, but the way we dwell on it, letting it haunt us. The Stoic approach flips this script. They ask, what can this regret teach me? How can I use it to make better choices moving forward? Let's bring this into a modern context. Imagine someone who regrets not taking a job opportunity because they were afraid of failing. That regret might sting, but instead of letting it paralyze them, they could use it as a lesson. Next time a similar opportunity arises, they might remind themselves of that regret and push past their fear, knowing that inaction often leads to deeper regret than trying and failing. This is Stoicism in action, turning regret into a catalyst for courage and growth. So, here's a question for you. Think about one regret in your life. What did it teach you? Maybe it showed you where your fears were holding you back or revealed a pattern you'd like to break. By reflecting on it without judgment, you can start to see it not as a failure but as a stepping stone. That's the power of the Stoic mindset. It transforms regret from an anchor into a guide, pointing you toward a wiser, more intentional way of living. What if nature held the key to your inner peace? This is a question the Stoics asked themselves centuries ago, and their answer might surprise you. For them, nature wasn't just trees, rivers, and mountains. It was a mirror reflecting the deeper truths of life. The Stoics believed that aligning with nature wasn't just about enjoying the outdoors. It was about understanding the natural order of things and finding your place within it. They saw nature as a teacher, offering lessons in resilience, acceptance, and harmony. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look." What he's saying here is profound. When we take the time to connect with nature, we're not just observing the world around us, we're also turning inward, discovering the strength and wisdom that already exist within us. Nature, in its simplicity and constancy, reminds us that life ebbs and flows, and that we, too, can adapt and thrive in the face of challenges. Imagine someone overwhelmed by the chaos of modern life. Maybe they're juggling a demanding job, family responsibilities, and personal struggles. One day, they decide to step away from it all and take a long walk in the woods. As they breathe in the fresh air and listen to the rustling leaves, something shifts. The noise in their mind quiets, and they begin to see their problems from a new perspective. Nature doesn't solve their issues, but it gives them the clarity to approach them with calm and purpose. This is exactly the kind of peace the Stoics believed we could find by aligning ourselves with the natural world. So, what can we take from this? The next time you feel overwhelmed or disconnected, consider spending time in nature. It doesn't have to be a grand adventure. It could be as simple as sitting under a tree, walking along a beach, or even tending to a garden. As you do, ask yourself, what can nature teach me about resilience? About acceptance, about my own inner strength? The answers might not come immediately, but if you listen closely, you'll find that nature has a way of speaking to the soul. What if gratitude could light your way through the darkest times? For the Stoics, gratitude wasn't just a fleeting emotion or something reserved for moments of joy. It was a deliberate practice, a way of seeing the world that could transform even the most difficult circumstances. They believed that by focusing on what we do have rather than what we lack, we could find strength and peace even in the midst of adversity. One of the most powerful Stoic thinkers, Epictetus, put it this way: "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." This simple yet profound idea reminds us that gratitude isn't about ignoring hardship or pretending everything is perfect. It's about shifting our perspective, about recognizing the good that still exists even when things feel overwhelming. For the Stoics, this wasn't just philosophical advice, it was a survival tool, a way to anchor themselves when life's storms threatened to pull them under. Let's bring this into a modern context. Imagine someone facing a sudden job loss. It's easy to spiral into frustration, fear, or despair. But what if, instead of focusing on what's been lost, they chose to focus on what remains? Maybe they still have their health, or the support of loved ones, or even the opportunity to explore a new path. By practicing gratitude, they don't deny the difficulty of their situation, they simply refuse to let it define their entire experience. This shift in perspective doesn't solve the problem, but it can make it feel more manageable, more bearable. So here's a challenge for you. Take a moment to think about your own life. Even if you're facing challenges right now, what are 3 things you can still be grateful for? It could be something as simple as a warm cup of coffee in the morning, a kind word from a friend, or the fact that you have the ability to learn and grow through whatever you're facing. Gratitude, as the Stoics understood, isn't about ignoring the pain, it's about finding the light that persists even in the darkest moments. Let's bring this journey full circle. Throughout this video, we've explored how Stoicism teaches us to turn pain into power, not by avoiding hardship, but by embracing it as an opportunity to grow. At the heart of this philosophy are 3 key principles: the dichotomy of control, cognitive reframing, and Amor Fati, or the love of fate. These tools remind us that while we can't always control what happens to us, we can always control how we respond. Pain, when met with resilience and virtue, becomes a teacher, shaping us into stronger, wiser versions of ourselves. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's greatest Stoic thinkers, put it best: the obstacle is the way. These 5 words capture the essence of Stoic resilience. Challenges aren't roadblocks, they're the path forward. Every setback, every moment of suffering is an invitation to rise above, to find meaning, and to cultivate strength. Now it's your turn. Think about the obstacles in your own life. How can you reframe them? How can you see them not as something to fear, but as something to embrace? Stoicism isn't just a philosophy, it's a practice, a way of living. And the more you apply these principles, the more you'll find that pain doesn't have to break you, it can build you. If this video resonated with you, let me know in the comments. How have you used Stoic principles to navigate your own challenges? And if you're hungry for more insights like these, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Together, let's keep exploring the timeless wisdom of Stoicism and discover how we can all turn our pain into power. Until next time, remember, the obstacle isn't just something to overcome, it's the